27,000. 27,000. And that's before the war in Iran. Do you know what we're spending right now, the war in Iran? We're spending the first 6 days of the war in Iran, the Pentagon spent $11 billion. Every day since, by their own accounting, they've spent $1 billion. That's a total of $32 billion over the last 29 days. Do you know what we could pay for with $1 billion? That's the cost of a single day of attacking Iran. $1 billion. The cost of 1 day of war in Iran is 10 new rural hospitals. It's 25 new elementary schools. It's 1,000 electric city buses. The cost of bombing Iran for 1 day is 3,000 new homes. So let me ask you as I close, do you want more homes or more war? Do you want more hospitals or more missiles? Hospitals! Do you want more city buses or more drones? Do you want to pay for new schools or bombs that kill school children? Schools! This is the No Kings rally, but we need to call for no war. No kings, no war.
No kings, no war.
No kings, no war.
No kings, no war.
No kings, no war.
No kings, no war.
All right, I love you all. God bless.
Thank you, Joe. Thank you, Joe, very much. Next up is my friend Charlotte. She's here from where are you from, Charlotte? Franklin? Oil City. She's going to talk to you for a minute.
Can I get a woo for screw fascism first? You can do better than that. Okay. So, my name is Charlotte. I'm a non-binary transgender woman. I'm not going to try to explain to you what that means, or transgender people, or even my existence. Instead, I want to talk to you about history, because although it seems to many of us at times as if we're fighting a bunch of different fights, racism, sexism, homophobia, transphobia, the fascists and the assholes never see these as separate fights. They see a constant, never-ending divide and conquer strategy where they look for any wedge they can, and then they use that to take over time and time again. And because I don't want our children and grandchildren and their grandchildren to be fighting this, I figure maybe we should appreciate the history so this can be the last damn time we have to do this. What I want to do is tell you, oh yeah, I already said that part. So, people seem to think we've only recently discovered transgender people, that laws against being trans or cross-dressing are new, but it is not so. And it is in fact the United States that exported such policies to Europe, not vice versa. Europe never had those laws before us. It began with indigenous communities who often had very different ideas of gender and sexuality than the European colonizers. In 1513, a Spanish conquistador named Vasco, I'm going to butcher this, Vasco Núñez de Balboa encountered 40 indigenous people he perceived as abominations. He perceived them as abominations because of the color of their skin, but when he had them torn apart and fed to his dogs alive, the excuse that he used was that they were wearing clothing of the wrong gender and sleeping with each other. That was in 1513. And he said they were an abomination. And today in San Diego, there is still a park named after this man. Woo! The mission system in California in the Southwest called Queer People Joyas, terms were people perceived as outside the gender binary, as outside the norm of what Europe thought gender and sexuality should be. They were enslaved or killed to purify the communities under the dogma of the time. Later on, in reservations our country ran, food and clothing would be withheld from entire communities if these people were tolerated or allowed to exist. They would starve the entire community. These were not yet laws. They did not need to be laws. It was understood that these never applied to white people, and they would not apply to white people for another century. But eventually, as the transatlantic slave trade brought more and more enslaved black communities to Europe, these laws started to regulate class, the peasantry, and the black enslaved Americans in check. In America, at one point in this country, you had to go to your local church to get your outfit and clothing approved if it was seen as being outside your class and station. These were called sumptuary laws. Dressing as if you were wealthy was a crime if you were poor. Using the wrong fabric was a crime if you had the wrong color of skin. These laws were weaponized first against gender non-conforming black people who were labeled as abominations and monsters, harassed and murdered. In May of 1866, a white mob, including local police and firemen, attacked and massacred 46 black people in Memphis, Tennessee. They burnt down churches, they burnt down schools, they burnt down homes, they killed children. Almost no one would testify about this to Congress. One of the few who could was a woman named Frances Thompson. Her testimony was widely publicized and led directly to the 14th Amendment a month later, and the Reconstruction Act a year after that. Congressman reported being moved to tears, but when it turned out a decade later that a newspaper revealed she had been born as a man, she was villainized across this country.